Shrapnel. The marketplace of Port Nexus was alive with sound and color. Hundreds of voices from 100 different species mixed into a single restless song. Merchants shouted prices, buyers argued, and translators hummed in their ears. The air was heavy with smoke from cooking stalls, perfume from alien flowers, and the sharp tang of machine oil drifting from open repair bays. Austin Morrison moved through the crowd with careful steps. He had been here for 3 months, working at a spice stall owned by a four-armed Vexian named Grell. To the outside world, he was just another human trader, but inside he carried the memories of a soldier, scars that no medicine could erase. The noise around him was distracting to most, but not to Austin. 6 years in the Earth Alliance Marines had trained his senses. He noticed patterns in footsteps, changes in voices, and the twitch of a hand reaching where it should not. Even here, far from the battlefields, his instincts never slept. "More customers today," Grell said, his deep voice like gravel. "Festival of Alignment brings good business." Austin nodded and stacked small jars of Terran pepper. The spice looked harmless, but in the wrong nose it could burn like fire. Last week a diplomat had nearly fainted after smelling it. Austin gave a small smile at the memory, but his attention shifted when he saw a small figure darting through the crowd. A child no more than 5 years by human measure. With pale blue skin and wide shining eyes, she chased a floating toy ball, giggling as if the marketplace was her playground. Austin frowned. He knew this species, the Lathians, respected and powerful in the Galactic Council. Their children were rarely seen without a protective circle of guardians. Where were they now? The ball bounced, rolled across the dusty ground, and slid under a parked skimmer. The little girl hurried after it, her small hand stretched under the machine. Austin's heart stopped. Something was wrong with that skimmer. His soldier's eyes caught the faint blue glow coming from the engine core. The pattern of the casing was not right. The vent was forced open, wires hung loose, and the glow pulsed faster with every second. It was not a toy. It was a bomb ready to burst. "Hey, kid," Austin shouted. His voice broke through the laughter and bargaining of the market. But the child did not understand. She only turned her head, confused, her hand still reaching. Time slowed for Austin. His body moved before his mind finished thinking. 3 long strides, a leap through the crowd, and he grabbed the girl, pulling her against his chest. His arms wrapped tight around her as he turned his back toward the skimmer. The explosion tore the air apart. A roar of fire and shrapnel blasted outward. Metal fragments cut through stalls and walls. The ground shook and the sky itself seemed to split. Austin felt the impact across his body. White-hot pain stabbed his back as burning shards bit into him. He hit the ground hard, curling his body around the child. His breath tore from his lungs. His vision blurred, the market turned into chaos. Screams rose, alarms wailed, people ran in every direction. Smoke covered the air. The girl trembled in his arms, her tiny body safe under his shield. Her big eyes filled with tears, but she was alive. "You're okay," Austin whispered. His voice weak but steady. Blood spread across his shirt, and every breath was fire in his chest. "You're safe now." Darkness pressed at the edge of his vision. The last thing he saw was the child's glowing blue face looking down at him. She placed a small hand on his chest. Her lips moved, and to his surprise, her voice was in perfect English. "Thank you," she said. The words echoed strangely in his fading mind. Then the world went silent. When Austin opened his eyes again, the world was white and smooth. The ceiling above him glowed like pearl. Clean air filled his lungs, but his body felt heavy. He could not move. He tried to lift his arms, but they would not answer. A steady beep of medical machines told him he was alive, but he was not free. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision. Then he saw them clearly. Tall armored figures stood in a circle around his bed. Their armor shone like glass and metal woven together. Each one held a weapon pointed at him. "The human is awake," a sharp voice declared. The guards did not relax. Instead, they stiffened. Waiting, Austin swallowed. His throat was dry. "Where am I?" he asked. "Silence," barked one of the guards. "You will speak only when the counselor arrives." The line of soldiers parted. A woman stepped into view. She wore a silver robe that flowed like liquid around her. Her skin glowed with pale blue light, marked with delicate shifting patterns that shimmered as she walked. Her eyes were large, deep, and filled with power. She stopped at the side of his bed and looked down at him. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut through him. Austin felt as if she could see every secret he carried. "You saved my daughter," she said. Her voice was calm but heavy with meaning. Why? Austin opened his mouth. His mind screamed with pain and memory, but the answer came simple. Because she was a child in danger. The woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. The room held its breath, and then one soldier leaned close to whisper. His words were low, but Austin's sharp ears caught them. The explosion was not meant for you, counselor. It was aimed at the girl. Austin's eyes widened. The woman's expression froze. In that moment, both knew the truth. The child was not only precious, she was the target. Offer you can't refuse. Austin lay still on the medical bed. His body ached, but his soldier's mind was awake. Watching, counting guards, noting exits. The silver-robed woman stood tall at his side. Her eyes carried the same blue glow as the child. But sharper, more dangerous, she was no ordinary figure. She was power-wrapped in beauty. I am Idria Thiberon, she said. Her voice was smooth, but it carried weight. Envoy to the Galactic Council and mother to the girl you saved. Austin breathed slowly. His ribs stung with every inhale. But he met her gaze. Austin Morrison, former Marine, he answered. Now just a spice seller trying to stay out of trouble. The corners of her lips curved. Not quite a smile. Trouble seems to find you, she said. You took an explosion meant for my daughter. That is not a small thing. Human lives are short. Yet you risked yours without hesitation. Why? Austin swallowed, his throat still dry. Because she was a kid, he said simply. On Earth we protect kids, doesn't matter whose child. Doesn't matter the cost. Idria's eyes softened. But only for a breath. Then her expression turned sharp again. 3 attempts have been made against my daughter in 2 months, she said. The council guards look strong, but they are predictable. My enemies know every move they make. I need someone different. Someone who cannot be calculated. Austin felt the trap closing before she even finished. You want to hire me, he said. As a security consultant, she corrected. Her voice had steel beneath its calm tone. Not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as an outsider who sees what others miss. My daughter is a target, and I cannot trust my own people. But I can trust the one man who already bled for her. Austin let out a slow laugh. Trust, he muttered. That's a dangerous word. One of the armored guards stepped forward. Envoy, he is a dishonored human, the guard hissed. The records say he disobeyed orders, caused civilian deaths. Austin's jaw clenched. The scar on his face seemed to burn at the words. The report is wrong, he said flatly. But I doubt anyone in this room cares. Idria raised her hand. Silencing the guard, her eyes stayed locked on Austin. I do care, she said. That is why you are here and not rotting in a cell. I looked into your past. You acted against orders, yes. But you acted to save innocence. That is not dishonor, that is instinct. That is what I need. The air in the room grew heavier. The guards stiffened, their weapons still ready. But their eyes uncertain, Austin studied Idria. Her blue skin shimmered with faint patterns that shifted like currents in water. He realized those patterns changed with her emotions. A living code across her skin. He wondered if she knew how much she was revealing. Finally, he asked, Why me? You could hire a dozen mercenaries with better records. Her gaze did not break. Because mercenaries think in credits, you think in lives. Because the man who shields a child with his own body is the man I need at my side. Austin felt something stir inside him. A purpose he thought he had buried under months of silence and exile. He wanted to resist. But the image of the little girl's terrified face would not leave him. Your enemies, he asked. Who are they, purists? Idria said. Her voice lowered. A faction inside our own government. They believe humans are dangerous. They fear your kind. They see you as chaos, and they fear chaos. But chaos may be the only thing that saves us. Austin shifted on the bed, wincing as his back flared with pain. So you want me to be your chaos, he said. Her lips curved again, this time with something close to mischief. Exactly, she said. Before Austin could reply, the door opened. A small face peeked inside. It was the girl, Illa. Her eyes were wide, curious, innocent. She ran forward before the guards could stop her. Thank you for saving me, she said in perfect English. Her small hand touched Austin's arm. Does it hurt? Austin forced a smile. Not anymore, he said gently. You're tougher than me, kid. Idria stepped closer, resting her hand on Illa's shoulder. Her eyes softened. My daughter has gifts, she said quietly. Her touch helped heal you. Our kind developed such powers later. But she shows them early, that makes her more precious. And more dangerous. The truth hit Austin like another explosion. The child was not only important because of her bloodline, she was important because of what she could do. And that meant the enemy would never stop. Austin sat up as far as his injuries allowed, his eyes hard. "If I take this job," he said, "I set the rules, I check every room, every guard, every system, and I treat everyone as a suspect until proven clean." Idria nodded. Without hesitation, "Agreed," she said. Her patterns shimmered brighter across her skin. Like stars pulsing with life, Austin looked at Illa, then back at Idria. The weight of choice pressed on him. The council might see him as a dishonored soldier, but here, in this room, he was being asked to be something else. Protector, guardian, human shield against a galaxy of threats. "I'll do it," Austin said finally. His voice steady. Idria exhaled, a sound like relief. But her eyes still glowed with calculation. She knew this was only the beginning. Austin knew it too. Because if the purist had already tried 3 times, then the next strike would be worse, and this time, they would not only come for the child, they would come for him too. Festival of Alignment Port Nexus glowed brighter than ever. The Festival of Alignment had come, a celebration held once every cycle, when the twin moons rose together. For the locals it was joy, for merchants it was profit, and for Austin Morrison it was a nightmare waiting to happen. The streets swelled with crowds, banners of light stretched between towers, music shook the air, fireworks fired from rooftops, and drones hovered overhead projecting illusions of mythical beasts. The city looked alive, but to Austin it looked like a battlefield painted in colors. He walked beside Idria and Illa through the center of it all, his body healed by alien medicine, but his instincts still scarred. His eyes scanned rooftops, his ears searched for the wrong sound beneath the festival's noise. He counted exits, corners, and shadows. "Every step a calculation, relax," Idria said softly, though her own eyes never stopped moving. "If the purists strike, they will not do it here." Austin shook his head. "If I were them, this is exactly where I'd strike," he muttered. "Noise to hide footsteps, crowds to hide weapons, chaos to erase trails." Idria gave him a look, half serious, half amused. "You think like an enemy. I think like a survivor," he replied. Illa skipped a few steps ahead, her toy ball floating around her head like a small moon. She laughed and spun, then turned to Austin. Look, I made it follow me without touching it." The ball hovered. Moving as if tied to her thoughts, Austin blinked. He knew telekinetic tricks existed in some species, but seeing it in a child unsettled him. "Does your mother know you can do that?" he asked. Illa nodded proudly. "Mother says to keep it secret, but you saved me. So you can know," she grinned, then tugged at his hand. "You're safe too." "When I'm near," Austin forced a smile, but inside his chest tightened. If Illa's gifts were growing this fast, the purest fear was not paranoia. It was strategy. They didn't just want her gone. They wanted what she could become. As they passed a line of stalls, Austin felt something prickle at the back of his neck. That sense he trusted more than sight. He looked and saw it. A flower sculpture, tall and elegant, petals of metal opening in the light. But one petal was wrong. Too sharp, too perfect. He leaned closer, and the petal's surface rippled. A black lens blinked open, a recording device hidden in plain sight. His earpiece buzzed with static. Then a whisper crawled into his bones. A voice not meant for him, but reaching him all the same. "Phase 2 ready, acquire the key." Austin froze. His heart pounded. He stepped back quickly, blocking Idria and Illa with his body. He typed a word on his slate and flashed it at Idria without breaking stride. "Run." Idria's face did not change. Her diplomat's smile remained in place as she nodded at passers-by. Only her eyes flickered to Austin, sharp as blades. She understood. They moved faster, weaving through the crowd. Austin guided them into narrower streets away from the center. But the crowd thickened. A parade line of mechanical beasts rolled in. Glowing eyes scanning the crowd, children cheered and ran alongside them. But Austin saw what others missed. The beasts were too uniform. Their movement too precise, no drift, no sway, no flaw. Machines built not for joy, but for order. "Security drones," Austin muttered under his breath. Modified, camouflaged as festival props. One of the machines turned its head. The glowing eye locked on Illa. Austin felt his gut twist. The festival was not cover for an attack. "The festival was the attack. Stay behind me," Austin ordered. His hand slid to the blade hidden in his belt. Primitive by galactic standards, but sharp enough for close quarters. The machine beast hissed. Panels opened along its side, and inside, Austin glimpsed something lethal, not fireworks, but weapons. The crowd screamed as the first blast fired. A surge of energy scorched the air. People scattered. But the machines did not fire at random. Their eyes tracked Illa, always Illa. Austin grabbed her and shoved her into Idria's arms. "Move now," he barked, his body turned toward the machines. His instincts screamed that he couldn't stop them all. But he could buy time. Guards finally rushed in. Idria's ceremonial soldiers tried to form a wall, but the machines cut through them with precision strikes. Austin cursed. They knew the guards' drills, he realized. They predicted every move. Another blast lit the street. Austin ducked and rolled, pulling a fallen guard's energy pistol from the ground. He fired, the beam slicing into a machine's leg joint. Sparks flew. The beast stumbled. He looked back and saw Illa's eyes glowing brighter than before. Her small hands trembled. "I can stop them," she whispered. "No," Idria snapped, pulling her closer. "Not here. Not now." But Austin saw it in her. The way the lights bent toward her. The way the broken machine sparked harder as if pulled by unseen hands. Illa was more than a target. She was a weapon the purists wanted to erase or control. The machines regrouped, circling them like hunters. Austin's pistol hummed, its charge running low. Idria pressed her hand to his arm, her voice steady despite the chaos. "What do we do?" Austin grinned, a grim smile only a soldier could give. "We improvise," he said. At that moment the machine's eyes flared red in unison. The voice returned, cold and precise, carried by hidden speakers in every corner. "Human, hand over the key." "Or Port Nexus burns." Austin tightened his grip on the pistol. His heart raced, his eyes flicked from Idria to Illa. Then back to the circling machines. The enemy had revealed their intent at last. And Austin knew one truth: this was no longer defense, this was war. Lockdown at Council Spire, the Galactic Council Spire rose like a blade of light above Port Nexus. Its glass towers caught the sun and split it into rainbows across the city. To citizens it was a symbol of unity. To Austin Morrison it looked like a sniper's dream. Escorts led Idria, Illa, and Austin into the grand chamber. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the seats. Their robes shimmered, their eyes suspicious. Voices overlapped in a dozen languages. A swirl of politics dressed as ceremony. Austin stood half a step behind Idria, dressed in borrowed clothes that made him look more diplomat than soldier, but under his calm mask his eyes searched every corner. Every shadow, every twitch of a hand, his instincts whispered danger. The treaty table stood in the center, carved from crystal that pulsed with energy. It was supposed to be a symbol of peace, but Austin felt his skin crawl. Something about the glow was wrong. Too bright, too perfect. He tapped his slate, typed 3 words, and slid it toward Idria as if passing her notes for a speech. "The table's hot." Idria glanced once, her patterns flickering a nervous blue. But her diplomat's smile never broke. She stepped forward and addressed the chamber, her voice clear, strong. "Today we stand on the edge of a new age. Humans and Lathions working as partners. Not rivals," the crowd murmured. Some leaned forward with interest. Others hissed in quiet anger. Austin's ear buzzed. "Torin." Idria's chief of staff whispered through the comm. "System scan shows irregular energy under the treaty table." "You were right, something is hidden." Austin's jaw tightened. He typed again on his slate and slid it across once more. "Bomb, not ceremony." At that moment, the glow under the crystal table pulsed harder. A ripple of distortion bent the air above it. The chamber's security chief shouted, "Weapons check." Scan the table. Delegates rose in shock. Some screamed, some protested. Guards rushed forward. Alarms screamed in answer. The scan completed. The results echoed across the chamber speakers. "Explosive device detected. Power core unstable. Evacuate immediately." Chaos tore through the room. Delegates pushed each other to escape. Robes tangled, translators buzzed wild. The symbol of unity had become a symbol of fear. But Austin didn't move. His eyes locked on Idria and Illa. He reached for them, guiding them toward an exit. "Move, stay low," he said. The chamber shook. Not from the bomb, but from something deeper. The walls hummed with power. Lights turned red. A voice filled every speaker on the station. Cold and merciless, Phase 3 initiated. Defense systems locked, targets acquired. Austin's stomach turned. He grabbed a guard's wrist and yanked his wrist comm. The display showed what he feared. The station's defense grid had activated, targeting not inward but outward. The crosshairs locked on the incoming Earth Alliance diplomatic vessel. "No," Austin whispered, his chest burned. "They're going to fire on the humans." The crowd panicked. Some shouted for peace, others shouted for blame. Renovic, the purist leader, rose with practiced fury. His voice cut the chaos. "See how dangerous humans are, even their presence brings war." Idria's eyes blazed. Her skin patterns flared violet with rage. "This is not human doing," she shouted back. "This is sabotage." Meant to frame them, the chamber erupted into shouts. But Austin ignored it all. He tapped his comm. Torin's voice answered, "Austin, defense systems are sealed. All commands locked. I can't break them." Austin's mind spun. Combat training kicked in, every second mattered. He saw two paths: save the council chamber from the bomb, or stop the defense grid before it killed thousands. He looked at Idria, at Illa clinging to her hand. For a moment his world narrowed to them. "Stay alive, Ina," he said, then slipped away into the maintenance corridors before the guards noticed. The halls throbbed red, automated lockdown doors slammed. The spire was becoming a cage, smoke-filled vents as systems overloaded. Citizens trapped inside screamed. Pounding on sealed doors, Austin shoved past them. Crawling into access shafts, his hands bled from jagged edges. His breath came harsh and steady. He remembered every battlefield crawl, every drop mission, every moment where failure meant death. This was no different. Torin's voice crackled again. "Austin, I tracked Illa's room feed. She's gone, not with Idria. The cameras cut just before the lockdown. She's been taken." Austin's gut twisted. He almost stopped moving but forced himself onward. "You're telling me the grid is rigged and the kid is missing?" "Yes," Torin said. "We are fighting two traps at once." Austin climbed down a shaft and dropped into a dark control hall. Screens flickered, guards lay unconscious. Not killed, but stunned. Neural disruptor burns marked their skin. Whoever had done this wanted no messy trail. He stepped closer. The main console blinked red. Defense grid 90% charge. 3 minutes to firing, Austin's heart thundered. He raised the stolen pistol, blasting the lock on the override panel. Sparks flew, wires dangled. He shoved his hands inside, fingers burning as he ripped power lines free. The console screamed warnings, but the charge slowed. Torin's voice returned. "Desperate, find Illa. I'll feed you coordinates, section 47B. That's where her signal stopped. Austin grit his teeth. "One crisis at a time," he muttered. His arms shook as power cracked against him. He forced the cables together, and the console went black. The grid froze at 95%. The targeting lock broke. The Earth Alliance ship drifted free. Austin dropped to his knees, chest heaving. "Grid disabled," he gasped. "But they still have Illa." He lifted his head. Blood streaked down his temple. His hand tightened on the pistol. "I'm coming for you, kid," he whispered. His voice low, full of iron. And in the council chamber above, Renovic smiled coldly, his words slicing through the panic. "The envoy's child is missing. The humans are to blame." Idria's heart froze, the world tilted, and the war she had fought to prevent now stood one breath away. The maze below. The lower decks of the spire were nothing like the shining chambers above. Here the air was damp, thick with the smell of coolant and rust. Pipes rattled overhead, dripping liquid that hissed on the hot floor panels. Lights flickered in long corridors, turning shadows into shifting predators. Austin dropped into section 47B, landing hard on metal grating. His knees ached. But he pushed forward, pistol raised. Behind him, the alarms above faded into distant echoes. Here it was quieter, but not safer. Torin's voice crackled in his ear. "The signal stopped in this sector. Illa must be close. But the cameras here are blind." Austin didn't like the tone. Too clipped, too calm. "Blind or cut?" he asked. Torin hesitated. "Cut." Austin's jaw tightened. Someone had planned this. Someone who knew these tunnels well. He pressed on, his boots clanging softly against the grating. The walls seemed to close in tighter with every step. A child's faint voice carried through the pipes. High and clear. "Austin!" He froze, heart pounding. It was Illa's voice, but wrong somehow. Too steady, too echoing. He crept forward, following the sound. Another whisper floated from the shadows. "Austin, hurry!" "I'm scared." His instincts screamed trap. He crouched, scanning with a soldier's patience. Then he saw it. A small projection sphere lying on the floor. looping Illa's voice, a decoy. The sound cut off as soon as he stepped near. Red light blinked from the sphere. Counting down. Damn, Austin muttered, throwing himself sideways. The device detonated with a blast of ion energy. The shockwave slammed him into the wall, rattling his teeth. He rolled up fast, coughing. Someone wanted him alive. The blast was meant to stun, not kill. He wiped blood from his lip, eyes hard. "I'm coming, kid. No matter what you throw at me," he whispered. A hiss echoed behind him. 3 figures stepped out from the shadows, armored in matte black plating, weapons glowing with blue energy, their faces hidden behind insect-like masks. Not council guards, not mercenaries either, purists, extremists dressed for covert war. Austin's grip tightened on his pistol. "Last chance," one hissed through a modulator. "Leave the envoy's child. Walk away." Austin's laugh was short and sharp. "Not in my nature," the first soldier fired. Bolts of crackling energy searing the air. Austin dove behind a coolant pipe, sparks showering him. He returned fire, each shot precise. The first purist fell with a smoking chest plate. The second rushed him, blade humming with plasma. Austin sidestepped, slammed his pistol into the attacker's throat, and pulled the trigger. The third hesitated, then retreated into the dark. Austin let him go. Sometimes fear carried messages faster than bullets. He pressed deeper, following the faint hum of power cores. Then he saw it. A sealed chamber door marked with alien runes. The scanner on the lock still glowed, recently used. Austin crouched, pressed his ear to the door. A sound filtered through, soft and rhythmic like breathing. "Illa," he whispered. No answer, only silence. He yanked wires from the panel. Sparks biting his hands, the lock hissed open. The door slid aside inside the room. Illa sat cross-legged on the floor, her small face pale but calm. Around her lay 3 unconscious guards, bodies twitching with faint electrical burns. Austin froze, blinking in disbelief. The girl looked up and smiled. "You're late," relief hit him like a punch. He dropped to one knee, checking her quickly. "No wounds. No bruises," he muttered. "How?" "They tried to hurt me," Illa said softly. "So I made them sleep." Her hand still glowed faint blue, sparks dancing between her fingers. Austin's breath caught. This wasn't just instinctive healing like before. This was power, raw and dangerous, too much for a child. He put his hands gently on her shoulders. "You scared me half to death," he whispered, "but I'm proud of you." Before she could answer, Torin's voice filled his calm again. "Austin, listen carefully. The council session is collapsing. Renovic is calling you a traitor. He claims you staged the bomb and the grid attack," Austin cursed. "Of course he is. And Idria..." Torin paused. "She's fighting for you, but she's losing the room." Austin scooped Illa into his arms. Her tiny hands clung to his neck. Her glow dimming as exhaustion set in. He looked down the corridor. Endless shadows waiting, every path a risk, every corner another ambush. He didn't have time to play defense anymore. "Torin," Austin said, voice steel. "Tell Idria to hold the chamber, tell her to stall." "Whatever it takes." "And you?" Torin asked. Austin adjusted Illa on his shoulder, pistol ready in his other hand. "I'm bringing the girl back, and when I do, I'm burning Renovic's lies to the ground." The corridor lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, machinery roared awake. The maze below was alive now, shifting, closing, hunting him. Austin took a breath, set his shoulders, and stepped forward into the dark. Because if he failed now, it wasn't just a girl at stake, it was the galaxy. Council in flames. The council chamber was no longer a place of reason. It was a storm, a riot dressed in robes. Delegates shouted across the circular floor, their voices sharp with fear, suspicion, and anger. Guards struggled to keep order, but even their weapons could not silence panic. At the center, the treaty table still glowed faintly. The bomb long disarmed, yet its shadow lingered. To many, it was proof of conspiracy. To others, it was proof of betrayal. And to Renovic, leader of the purist faction, it was the perfect stage. He stood tall, his markings glowing like fire, his voice slicing through the chaos. "Look at what happens when humans are allowed into our sacred halls. They bring destruction, they bring deceit. They bring war." His words struck chords of fear. Delegates nodded, murmurs rippled like waves. Even those who doubted him felt the chill of doubt. Idria Tiburon did not flinch. She rose from her seat, her silver robes shimmering with the patterns of her anger. Her voice was calm, steady but sharp as a blade. Counselors, do not be fooled. The evidence points not to humanity, but to sabotage from within. Ask yourselves who benefits from chaos, who profits if this treaty fails. Some listened. Some turned away, Renovik sneered. And who profits if you, envoy, bind us to the chaos of humanity with more than politics? Who profits when your child calls a human protector her own? A ripple of shock spread through the chamber. Accusations of intimacy, of loyalty divided, whispered like poison. Idria's patterns flared violet. But she did not deny it. Instead, she raised her chin, her twilight eyes burning. My personal choices are not this council's concern. What is your concern is the truth, and the truth is this. Renovik knew of these attacks before they happened. Gasps filled the air. Renovik laughed, low and dangerous. You claim this because your human told you so. A human with a record stained in blood. A man who lies as easily as he breathes. He slammed his hand against the table. Bring forth the evidence. At that moment, the doors of the chamber groaned open, every head turned. Through the smoke and light stepped Austin Morrison. Clothes torn, face streaked with blood, pistol at his side and on his shoulders. Her small arms wrapped tight around his neck. Was Illa. The chamber fell into silence. Delegates stared, shocked not only by his return but by the girl awake, alive, glowing faintly with a light not of this world. Her tiny hands sparked as she raised her head. I am not afraid, she said softly, her voice carrying like music across the room. Idria's knees almost buckled with relief. Her child was safe. Austin's eyes locked with hers. And for a heartbeat the chaos faded. But Renovik's fury broke the silence. This is theater, he roared. Staged by the human to trick us. He planted the bombs, he controlled the grid, and now he parades the child as if proof of his loyalty. Austin stepped forward, his voice like steel. You want proof, he said, tossing a small device onto the treaty table. The projector flared, replaying images from the maze below. Guards carrying Illa unconscious. Renovik's crest flashing in coded signals. Masked purists receiving orders. The council chamber gasped as the truth unfolded in brutal clarity. Renovik froze, his mask cracking for the first time. The recordings were undeniable. He lashed out in desperation. She is lying. The human faked this, but even his supporters shifted uneasily. The tide was turning. Still, Renovik was not done. He raised his hand, a hidden blade sliding from his sleeve, glowing with venom light. Delegates screamed, guards moved too slow. The blade cut through the air toward Idria, but Austin was already moving. He dropped Illa into her mother's arms and lunged. Time slowed. The blade flashed, his body twisted, and his shoulder caught the strike. Pain tore through him like fire, but his fist slammed into Renovik's chest, driving the traitor to the floor. Gasps echoed again. Renovik writhed, markings flickering. Blood spilling as guards rushed to pin him down. Austin staggered, clutching his wound. His breath ragged, Idria caught him, her arms strong. Her daughter pressed between them. Her voice trembled. Why do you always throw yourself into the fire? Austin grinned weakly. His teeth stained red. Because that's what humans do, he whispered. Above them, the council chairman rose, his voice deep and commanding. Order, order, he called. When silence finally fell, his eyes swept the room. The envoy has risked her life for peace. The human has risked his life for us all. The purists sought to ignite war, but they have failed. This council will not break. Not today. A roar of approval filled the chamber. For the first time, humanity was not seen as threat, but as ally. And for the first time, Austin felt the council's eyes on him, not with suspicion, but with respect. He sagged against Idria, the world tilting, her hand pressed against his wound. Her patterns glowing brighter, Illa whispered, Don't leave us, and Austin smiled faintly, even as darkness edged his vision. Not planning to? Kid, the council chamber was in flames, not of fire but of history reshaping itself, and in the middle of it stood a human soldier, a Lysian envoy, and a child with power neither side fully understood. The galaxy would never be the same. A new dawn. The spire was quiet now. The fires had been put out, the alarm silenced, and the council chamber sealed for investigation. But the echoes of betrayal and blood still clung to the walls. Delegates whispered in hushed tones, history being rewritten with every word. Austin lay in the medical wing again, his body bandaged, his strength drained. This time the wound was deeper, the blade laced with toxins that bit into his veins. Machines hummed around him. Alien fluids coursed through his body, fighting to keep him alive, yet his eyes were open. Sharp, unwilling to fade, Idria sat beside him, her robes discarded for simpler clothes. Her skin glowed faint patterns of exhaustion and relief. Her hand never left his. Her voice soft, steady. "You saved me again." But at what cost? Austin smirked, wincing at the pain. "You Lysians need to stop keeping count, or I'll look like a martyr." "And I hate that word," she shook her head, her twilight eyes shimmering. "You're not a martyr, you're mine." Ila peeked around the door, her small feet pattering on the polished floor. She climbed onto the bed without hesitation, curling against Austin's side. Her voice was small but firm. "I told them my human would save me, and you did." Austin's throat tightened. His arm wrapped protectively around her. "No, kid, you saved yourself. I just made sure the bad guys didn't finish the job." But even as he held them, unease gnawed at his mind. Renovik was captured, yes, but the purists were not finished. Factions this strong never died with one leader. Somewhere in the shadows of the galaxy, others were waiting, planning, watching. Tauren entered quietly, his expression unreadable. He bowed slightly to Idria, then looked at Austin. "The council has declared Renovik guilty. His faction is broken. His allies scattered." Austin raised an eyebrow. "Scattered, not gone." "Right," Tauren's lips pressed thin. "Correct. And that means danger still lingers." Idria stood, her back straight, her voice firm. "Then we meet that danger together, no more secrets. No more shadows." She turned to Austin, her patterns glowing brighter. "I want you by my side. Not as a guard, not as an advisor, but as my partner." The words hit him harder than the blade had. For a man who once lived only for orders, for survival, for shadows, it was more terrifying than battle, but also more beautiful. He reached for her hand, squeezing it weakly. "You sure your people will accept a broken human soldier at your side?" She leaned closer, her smile soft but unyielding. "They will have no choice. Because it is not only about politics, it is about truth, and the truth is, I choose you." Before Austin could answer, the lights dimmed. A new voice crackled through the station speakers, mechanical and cold. "You think you have won? But the war is only beginning." Austin's heart clenched. The purists weren't gone. They were moving faster than anyone expected. The voice continued. "Renovik was one piece. There are others, stronger, hidden deeper. The treaty you signed today will be its own weapon, dividing the galaxy instead of uniting it." The transmission cut, leaving silence heavy in the room. Ila clung tighter to Austin, her patterns glowing faintly. "They're still out there," she whispered. Austin forced himself upright despite the pain. He looked at Idria, then at Ila. "I don't care how many shadows are out there. They made one mistake." Idria tilted her head. "And what mistake is that?" "They gave me something to fight for again," Austin said, his eyes burning with new fire. Tauren straightened, a rare smile ghosting across his face. "Then perhaps the galaxy still has hope." Later, as the diplomatic vessel left the station, Austin stood at the viewport, the stars stretching endless before him. Idria joined him, her robes replaced with armor like silver, a symbol of strength, not ceremony. Ila ran between them, laughing, the sound echoing like a promise of tomorrow. The council had changed, the treaty had been signed, but war still simmered in the dark corners of the galaxy. Austin knew peace would not come easily, but for the first time since his exile, he welcomed the fight. He turned to Idria, her patterns glowing with calm certainty. "To new beginnings," he said. She touched his cheek, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "To a new dawn." And as their ship broke into hyperspace, the stars bent around them, carrying a soldier, a diplomat, and a child into the unknown. The galaxy was wounded but alive, and in its heart burned something far stronger than fear. Hope.